Charlie Chaplin stands ankle-deep in fresh snow on the windswept slopes of the Sierra Nevada mountains, watching his cinematographer Roland Tutheroo struggle to protect the camera equipment from the increasingly violent blizzard that has been building for the past 2 hours. The location manager approaches through the driving snow and shouts over the howling wind, "Charlie, we need to pack up now. This blizzard is getting dangerous. We can't film in these conditions." But Charlie adjusts his bowler hat against the wind and declares with the unwavering determination that defines his artistic vision, "We're not leaving until we get this scene right." The story requires authentic mountain conditions, and this storm is giving us exactly what we need. What unfolds during the next 7 hours and 43 minutes of filming in sub-zero temperatures doesn't just demonstrate one director's extraordinary commitment to his craft. It reveals how the greatest cinematic achievements often emerge from artists' willingness to endure extreme hardship for their vision, and how the pursuit of authenticity sometimes demands pushing human endurance to its absolute limits. Truckee, California. Sierra Nevada Mountains, January 23, 1925, Friday afternoon, 2:15. The remote mountain location, 60 miles from the nearest town, represents Charlie's determination to shoot the gold rush in authentic Klondike conditions rather than relying on studio sets and artificial snow. The cast and crew of 42 people have been camping in temporary shelters for 3 weeks, enduring temperatures that regularly drop below zero and weather conditions that make filming a constant battle against the elements. Charlie, at 35, has already established himself as both a perfectionist and a risk-taker willing to go to extraordinary lengths for his artistic vision. But this location shoot represents his most ambitious attempt yet to achieve absolute realism in his filmmaking. Instead of creating the Klondike Gold Rush atmosphere in the controlled environment of his Hollywood studio, he has insisted on bringing his entire production to actual snow-covered mountains during the harshest part of winter. The specific scene they're attempting to film today shows the little tramp struggling through a blizzard, lost and desperate, carrying all his possessions while searching for shelter. Charlie believes this sequence requires genuine mountain weather conditions to achieve the emotional authenticity he envisions. Artificial snow and studio wind machines, no matter how sophisticated, cannot create the real physical strain and environmental challenge that will make the tramp's struggle feel genuine to audiences. But what began as light snow at dawn has intensified into a full blizzard with winds exceeding 50 miles per hour and visibility reduced to less than 20 feet. The temperature has dropped to 8 degrees below zero, and the National Weather Service has issued warnings about dangerous travel conditions throughout the Sierra Nevada region. Roland Tutheroo, Charlie's loyal cinematographer who has worked with him since 1916, huddles behind a canvas windbreak trying to keep moisture from freezing on the camera lens. "Charlie," Roland calls out, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "The camera mechanisms are starting to freeze up. The film advance is getting sluggish, and I'm worried about the lens cracking in this cold." "How much longer can the equipment function?" Charlie asks, pulling his coat tighter against the wind. "Maybe another hour if we're lucky." "But Charlie, it's not just the equipment I'm worried about. Look at the crew." Charlie surveys his team and sees that several crew members are showing signs of serious cold exposure. The script supervisor's hands are shaking so violently she can barely hold her pencil. 2 of the lighting technicians have retreated to the equipment truck to warm their fingers. The assistant director's lips have turned blue despite his heavy winter clothing. George Davis, the production manager Charlie hired specifically for his experience with difficult location shoots, approaches through the storm. "Charlie, this is getting dangerous. The access road is becoming impassable, and if anyone needs medical attention, we might not be able to get them out of here." "What exactly are you suggesting, George?" "I'm suggesting we pack up the equipment, get everyone back to base camp, and wait for this storm to pass. We can resume filming when conditions improve." Charlie understands the practical wisdom of George's recommendation, but he also recognizes that this blizzard is providing exactly the authentic atmospheric conditions that his story requires. The little tramp's struggle against the elements needs to feel real because it represents every person's battle against circumstances beyond their control. "George, look at what this storm is doing to the landscape," Charlie says, gesturing toward the snow-covered terrain being sculpted by the wind. This is precisely the environment where desperate men searched for gold, where they faced starvation and freezing, where they discovered what they were truly made of. We can't recreate this in a studio. But Charlie, we can't recreate it if our people get frostbite or worse. You're asking the crew to risk serious injury for a few minutes of film. This challenge forces Charlie to confront one of the fundamental ethical dilemmas of ambitious filmmaking. When does artistic vision justify asking people to endure genuine hardship? How far can a director push his team in pursuit of authenticity? "Let me talk to the crew individually," Charlie decides. "Anyone who feels unsafe can return to base camp immediately. But for those willing to continue, I believe we can capture something extraordinary." Charlie approaches each crew member personally, explaining his vision for the scene while making clear that participation is entirely voluntary. He describes how this sequence will serve the larger story and why authentic conditions matter for the film's emotional impact. "Here's what I'm seeing," Charlie tells his key collaborators, gathered around the equipment truck for shelter. The little tramp represents every person who has ever been overwhelmed by circumstances beyond their control. In this scene, he's literally fighting for his survival against nature itself. If we film this with artificial snow and studio lighting, audiences will sense the artificiality and the emotional impact will be diminished. "But what if someone gets seriously hurt?" asks prop master Tom Harrington, a veteran of numerous difficult location shoots. "That's exactly why I'm asking each person to make their own decision. I won't order anyone to stay, and there will be no professional consequences for anyone who chooses to leave. But for those who share my vision and are willing to endure these conditions, I believe we can create something that justifies the hardship." Charlie's approach reflects his understanding that extraordinary artistic achievements require extraordinary commitment, but that such commitment cannot be demanded. It must be freely given by people who share the vision and understand its importance. Surprisingly, 38 of the 42 crew members choose to remain for the filming. Some are motivated by loyalty to Charlie, others by professional pride, and some by genuine excitement about participating in what they recognize as an unprecedented attempt at cinematic realism. "All right then," Charlie announces, "let's make this count. We'll film continuously for as long as the equipment functions and everyone remains safe. Roland, I want to capture the tramp's entire journey through this storm, his confusion, his determination, his gradual exhaustion, and his ultimate discovery of shelter." The scene Charlie has envisioned requires him to perform for nearly 20 minutes of continuous filming, carrying a heavy pack while struggling through knee-deep snow in sub-zero temperatures. The little tramp's costume, the thin jacket, worn shoes, and lightweight trousers, provides virtually no protection against the brutal conditions. "Charlie, you're going to freeze in that outfit," wardrobe supervisor Alice O'Neill points out with obvious concern. "The tramp wouldn't have proper winter clothing," Charlie responds. "Gold prospectors were often unprepared for mountain conditions. If I'm warm and comfortable, the performance won't be authentic." Charlie's commitment to maintaining character authenticity even at the cost of personal comfort demonstrates the depth of his dedication to the artistic vision. He understands that genuine physical discomfort will translate into authentic performance in ways that acting technique alone cannot achieve. As filming begins, Charlie starts his trek through the storm, carrying the tramp's bundle of possessions while the wind threatens to knock him off his feet. The snow is so deep that each step requires enormous effort, and the wind is so strong that he must lean forward at an extreme angle just to maintain forward progress. "Cut," Roland calls after the first take. "Charlie, the wind is affecting the camera stability. I need to try a different position." But when Charlie approaches the camera, Roland notices that his lips are already turning blue and his movements have become noticeably stiff. "Charlie, you need to warm up before we continue." "No time," Charlie responds, his teeth chattering. "The light is changing, and this storm might not last much longer. Let's reset and go again. This exchange reveals Charlie's understanding that natural conditions like this blizzard create unique opportunities that cannot be replicated or postponed. Unlike studio filming, where conditions can be controlled and repeated, location shooting in extreme weather requires capturing the desired footage while the elements cooperate. The second take proves even more challenging as the storm intensifies. Charlie struggles through drifts that reach above his knees while trying to maintain the tramp's characteristic dignity and grace despite the brutal conditions. The wind repeatedly threatens to tear his hat from his head, and the cold makes his gestures increasingly stiff and mechanical. But something extraordinary begins to happen as the scene develops. Charlie's genuine physical struggle against the elements creates a performance of remarkable authenticity. His labored breathing isn't acting. It's real exertion. His careful, deliberate movements aren't theatrical choices, they're the natural result of fighting through deep snow in inadequate clothing. "This is incredible," Roland whispers to his assistant while continuing to film. Charlie's not just performing the tramp's struggle, he's actually experiencing it. The authenticity of Charlie's performance begins to inspire the entire crew. Despite their own discomfort, they become increasingly committed to capturing this extraordinary scene. The soundman risks frostbite to position recording equipment closer to the action. The lighting crew uses battery-powered reflectors to maintain visibility despite the storm. After 43 minutes of continuous filming, Charlie completes the sequence by reaching a small cabin that serves as the tramp's shelter. As he stumbles through the door and collapses exhaustedly beside a prop fireplace, the crew erupts in spontaneous applause. But when Charlie tries to stand up, his legs buckle and he nearly falls. The extended exposure to extreme cold while wearing inadequate clothing has pushed his body to the limits of endurance. "Get him to the warming tent immediately," George Davis orders, recognizing signs of serious cold exposure. Charlie spends the next 2 hours in the heated equipment truck, drinking hot coffee and gradually restoring circulation to his extremities. Dr. Marcus Webb, the location medic Charlie insisted on hiring for the mountain shoot, examines him for signs of frostbite. "You came close to hypothermia," Dr. Webb warns. Another half hour in those conditions wearing that costume could have been genuinely dangerous. "But did we get the scene?" Charlie asks Roland, more concerned about the footage than his physical condition. "Charlie, it's the most authentic performance I've ever captured on film. The audience will feel every step of that struggle because it was real." Roland's assessment proves accurate when the film is eventually released. The blizzard sequence becomes one of cinema's most memorable scenes precisely because audiences sense its authenticity. Charlie's genuine physical struggle creates an emotional connection that no amount of acting technique could have achieved. But the day's filming isn't finished. As the storm begins to clear slightly, Charlie insists on capturing additional shots that take advantage of the changing atmospheric conditions. "Look at that light," Charlie points out, indicating how the afternoon sun occasionally breaks through the clouds to create dramatic illumination of the snow-covered landscape. "We need to capture the moment when the storm breaks and the tramp realizes he might survive." Despite Dr. Webb's warnings about continued cold exposure, Charlie returns to filming, this time wearing additional layers beneath his costume. The crew, inspired by his commitment, rallies to capture several more sequences before darkness makes filming impossible. By 9:30 p.m., when they finally pack up the equipment, the crew has captured nearly 4 hours of footage in conditions that most filmmakers would consider impossible for location shooting. The cost in terms of human endurance has been enormous, but the artistic results prove extraordinary. "Why did you push so hard today?" Roland asks Charlie as they warm up in the base camp dining tent. "Because authentic emotion in film comes from authentic experience," Charlie responds. The audience needs to believe that the little tramp is actually struggling against real hardship. If they sense that the danger is artificial, the emotional impact disappears. But was it worth the risk? That depends on whether we've created something that justifies the cost. If this sequence helps audiences understand what desperate people will endure to survive, If it makes them feel compassion for anyone struggling against overwhelming circumstances, then yes, it was worth every moment of discomfort. Charlie's response reveals his understanding that art serves a purpose beyond entertainment. Great cinema should help audiences develop empathy and understanding for human experiences they might never personally encounter. When The Gold Rush premieres 8 months later, critics immediately recognize the blizzard sequence as something unprecedented in cinema. The New York Times review specifically mentions the extraordinary realism of scenes filmed in actual mountain conditions that create genuine emotional impact. But the sequence's lasting significance extends beyond its immediate critical reception. It demonstrates that authentic performance often requires authentic experience, that the most memorable cinematic moments frequently emerge from artists' willingness to endure real hardship for their vision. Years later, when film students ask Charlie about the relationship between artistic vision and personal sacrifice, he invariably returns to that January afternoon in the Sierra Nevada. Art demands commitment that goes beyond professional obligation, Charlie explains. If you're not willing to suffer for your vision, to push yourself beyond comfort and convenience, then you're not really an artist, you're just someone with artistic pretensions. What's the most important lesson from that experience? That authenticity cannot be faked. Audiences can sense the difference between genuine emotion and manufactured sentiment. If you want to move people, you have to be moved yourself, and sometimes that requires putting yourself in situations where you experience real struggle. The 7 hours and 43 minutes Charlie and his crew spent filming in blizzard conditions proved that the greatest artistic achievements often require the greatest personal commitment, and that the pursuit of cinematic truth sometimes demands pushing human endurance to its absolute limits in service of a vision that transcends individual comfort and convenience.